Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. Let's go ahead and get into this. So we finally have a name, people. We finally have a name after waiting pretty much. I mean, it seems like we've been waiting for months and months, but we've only been waiting, I think, for about 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. Brian Daboll was one of the top Giants candidates. He was one of the top candidates from the jump. Pretty much people were talking about him during the season. They were thinking that's who we need to target at head coach because of what he did with Josh Allen. And just let's put that out. We're not asking him to turn Daniel Jones into Josh Allen, but we did recognize that he developed a very raw quarterback who had accuracy issues, had issues reading defenses, had a bunch of issues, and he turned him into probably a top 3 quarterback in the entire NFL. So just that speaks for itself. He can work with guys. He can put people in the best situations to win. He is someone who, first off, he doesn't have a certain way he plays offense. He doesn't have a certain way he designs or calls plays. He has pretty much a Patrick Graham-esque, Patriots-esque, different type of offense, no matter depending on what his players are. So with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen and Cole Beasley and those guys, that's an entirely different offense than it's going to look like with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones and whoever else that we decide to roll out there, Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, et cetera, Sterling Shepard. If we keep him, we're going to see a different offense. But one thing that we do see a lot in Brian Daboll's offense is a bunch of crossing routes, and I think that that's really what's winning in the NFL right now. Crossing routes, intermediate crossing routes, deep crossers are destroying defenses in the NFL right now, and I'm excited to finally see an offense that's going to be a lot more aggressive than the offense that we've run the past 2 years, and I mostly blame that on Joe Judge. Now, Joe Judge, I thought he was a good leader of men. I thought a lot of great things about him, but he was not someone, first of all, he wasn't some type of offensive scheme guru, he wasn't anything like that. But he had to have an input in the offense. His conservative style of coaching, and he was part of the game plan. Every single week we went out there, we played not to lose. And I feel like with an offensive coach, we're going to play to win. Defensive coaches, special teams coaches, other coaches kind of play not to lose. They play with their defense. They play with their special teams. They trust their kicking game. But I want to go out there on offense and take things. I want to go out there on offense and be aggressive and set the tone. Whether that's be throwing it, whether that be running it, we got to set the tone. And this 2022, offense has to set the tone. So that's why I thought it was really important to get an offensive head coach. And Brian Daboll, to me, was the best name, the most qualified name on the market. You got Mike McDaniel, who might be a juggernaut, but a lot younger, a lot less experience. So Brian Daboll is going to be our coach. If you look at the last, 3 or 4 coaches, is he going to be anything like those guys? People said, I don't want a young, inexperienced head coach. Well, Brian Daboll has been coaching in the NFL for a long time. I think he's been coaching in the NFL for over like 15 years, probably more than that at this point. He's a guy, I think he's 45 years old. He's been coaching in the NFL for a while. And yes, he coached the likes of Colt McCoy and some of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL, Matt Moore. And yes, he didn't do too well with them, but you can't turn, the worst of the worst into good. It just doesn't work that way. No matter what scheme you draw up, you cannot make the worst of the worst good players. And if your scheme is horrible, then you make guys who are the worst of the worst look even horrible. See what Jason Garrett and Freddie Kitchens did last year. That's what we saw when we put bad players in a bad scheme. You get historically bad. So I think that Brian Daboll can give all of our offensive players a boost. When you look at our past coaches, you look at Joe Judge. He was a guy who was a first-time head coach, special teams guy, not necessarily a specialty on either side, a pretty young coach. You look at a guy before that, Pat Shurmur. All he had done is just failed in Cleveland. He'd been a solid offensive coordinator, and we pretty much hired him because he made Case Keenum a good player. We hired him specifically for Eli Manning. McAdoo, we hired him specifically for Eli Manning. And I love Eli. Eli did a lot of great things for the Giants, but at that time he was about 37, 36, 37 years old, or maybe a little bit younger, but he was on the backside of his career, and we were hiring coaches specifically for one player. Brian Daboll is going to be a coach who's going to be here for the entire offense. I don't think he was hired just to revive Daniel Jones. I think he was hired for this entire offense because his scheme works. It's worked. It started off slow in Buffalo, and it got better and better and better as he developed the quarterback, as he got the players that he thought fit into that scheme. It'll work, in my opinion. When you look at the last couple of coaches, they were guys who were hired for one thing. McAdoo specifically for Eli Manning, Shermer specifically for Eli Manning. Joe Judge was supposed to be our new start, but he was here with Dave Gettleman. He never got that shot. And now we have a fresh GM, fresh head coach. They're aligned together. Again, they're aligned. They have the same mission. They spoke about it. They interviewed everybody under the sun. And they got two people who agree with each other, who are going to push this thing forward on the same page, and that is everything. And I think that may have been a little bit of a disconnect when you look at the fact that Brian Flores was a finalist too. And Flores, he just may not have aligned with everything Joe Shane wanted to do. He just may not have aligned. He may not have believed in Daniel Jones, and I don't blame him. He may not have believed in the fact that don't have much salary cap space. He just may have wanted a different situation. And when I say different situation, I mean as far as what Joe Shane sees going forward. There were also some reports that were saying that he was just pretty open to seeing whatever type of offensive coordinator that the Giants wanted to bring in. And it kind of looked like he was kind of changing his narrative to fit exactly what the Giants wanted. And I don't want a coach here who's going to cave to the ownership. But I think they were both two great candidates. But Brian Daboll, I think, is a much better fit when you look at the fact that the offense, the last couple of years, has been atrocious. I mean, you look at 2019, Daniel Jones is throwing 4 and 5 touchdowns. 2020, Daniel Jones literally, in the span of 2 weeks in 2019, Daniel Jones was doing that pretty much 80 to 90% of the season. I mean, 12 touchdowns. Are you kidding me? 10 touchdowns. The scheme was broken. The coaching, the game planning, the preparation was off. And I think that we'll see an immediate boost in that. Again, I'm not expecting him to revive Daniel Jones. I'm not even expecting him to make Daniel Jones, be the quarterback after this upcoming season. But what he will do is provide some stability to that offense, give us an offense that can be functional, give us an offense that won't be a complete liability. I believe we already have the pieces there. You look at Daniel Jones, I think he's a solid starter. I think if you put him in the right situation, he's a solid starter. You look at Saquon Barkley, we know who he is. Look at Kadarius Toney, I think he can be special. Kenny Golladay, he can be special. Darius Slayton, Gabriel Davis. I see a lot of similarities between Darius Slayton and Gabriel Davis. Davis might be a little bit better of a route runner, but I think that you can pretty much use them interchangeably. Not that he'll end up having 4 touchdowns and 200 yards in a playoff game, but I think you can use them in similar roles, and I think that's what Daboll will look for. So I think we have a lot of pieces here, so it'll be a little bit quicker of a build-up than what he was in Buffalo, because in Buffalo he started off really slow, but they were one of the worst offenses in the league. Next year, they got to pretty much average, and then they've been really high ever since. So I think that it'll be a quicker start than he had in Buffalo. I think it all depends on who we get an offensive coordinator to that's going to make sure that he draws up those plays and helps him put the scheme together. Also, the big question, too, is who is he going to bring in as defensive coordinator? Is it going to be Wink Martindale, who we've heard all the rumors about? Wink Martindale, the Ravens defensive coordinator who was let go, who loves to run cover 0, cover 1 all day and sends a bunch of blitzes. That's a very aggressive way of playing. He does have that 3-4 defense. Or is it going to be Patrick Graham? We're going to keep the same defense and just build with that and keep those guys in the same system. I think it's between those two guys, I would say. If Patrick Graham doesn't get a head coaching job, I think it's between those two guys for defensive coordinator. And I'm just feeling really good because I believe we have the offense squared away. No matter who we have at quarterback, I think that Daboll is capable of putting together at least a competent offense. So I can't wait to see what's next. I can't wait to see his introductory press conference. Of course, I'll give my comments on that after that happens. But we finally got someone who I think really can give us a competitive advantage for the first time since we've had Pat Shurmur on offense. And hopefully Daboll is able to translate that over to being a leader of men. And I think that he's someone who can, from the clips that I've seen, from how he manages the team. He's not a low energy guy like Pat Shurmur. But again, here's to hoping that he succeeds as a Giants coach. Him and Joe Shane are coming over from the Buffalo Bills. Let's hope that we can have a similar track of success as they've had with the Buffalo Bills. You guys have a great rest of your night and celebrate the new head coach of the Giants. I think we made a great hire. If you made it this deep into the video, come on, just hit the subscribe button. I make Giants content primarily, draft content secondarily, and during the season, I'm going to be doing a lot of reacting to pretty much most of the NFL games and everything NFL. So if you made it this deep, go ahead and join the D6 squad.